Hello YouTube, I'm Elwirfy, and today we're going to be looking at kind of the core army that I currently have for Warhammer 40k. And as you can see, it's a pretty decently sized core force. Keep in mind this is not including the Death Company strike force that I've been covering for pretty much all of these Warhammer videos so far, but I figured I'd go ahead and take a look at what I already have completed, ready to go. And this is my Blood Angels. This is about 765 points that you'd use to allocate your forces. And I think I did a pretty good job. I mean, if you just, like, here's a Terminator, for example. You know, I kind of painted him. He's not done yet, of course. Waiting on to get some more paint, but that's just because the Terminators have a bit more detail. But, like, these Marines, you know, I painted the their gun and the shoulder pads and such, and the Space Marines are generally pretty red. Gonna probably get some silver to get it a little bit of a nicer tone overall, to make it a little bit more fluent. But these Marines are pretty much ready to go. Like, I could take this to a table and actually go play it if I wanted to right now. This would totally be acceptable. I even painted, like, the Blood Angel. I hand painted that Blood Angels logo onto my Rhino. This is a transport tank. These guys are made to carry troops. A little bit of a tread broke off, but you know, not the end of the world. Still completely usable. Highly doubt this would be much of an issue. And of course I have two of them on both of the Rhinos. I do have the hand-painted Blood Angels symbol. This one doesn't have a top gunner, mainly because this one didn't come with it for some reason. So it just doesn't have it. But these are both pretty much identical, both of these two tanks. And then I also have a drop pod. Let me just grab that. As you can see, it's got a nice little black line on it to kind of really make it pop a bit more when it's on the table. But overall it is just a solid red. Nothing too special about it. The door is of course open. And I left it gray, so it looks like it's like a metallic walkway coming down. I didn't feel like painting it anything on purpose, as well as keeping the consoles gray, just so it seems a bit more real instead of having everything painted like that. And it saved me time. I didn't have to paint it, as well as the bottom being completely red. So everything is still pretty much in theme with the Blood Angel list. And also, obviously, we have guys like this, you know. This is, for example, the company. Well, I guess not. He's supposed to be a captain. I can definitely use him as a captain, but I really like the way I painted his chain sword, how I still was able to keep the red there for it to be silver or blood, perhaps. Keep it that way. And he's also got a plasma pistol, so that's pretty good. Pretty good. I also like the detailing I did here on just the hand. If the camera will focus a bit, maybe it won't focus for me. It's a shame, but I was able to paint all of the chainsword without getting his hand painted. I was really proud of that. Okay, but what's actually the point of this? I mean, yes, I'm showing off the army and such, but what is it actually, the purpose of this? Well, the point is, I want to talk about kind of what my thinking is strategically, as well as kind of talk about special functions within each of these three units, as well as this heavy group of soldiers as well. And I do actually have some Death Company guys finished, but I'm going to do the Death Company one in a separate video and then combine them all together. So let's say I was just going to take this army as a whole, and this was going to be my force to battle against. Obviously, this is actually surprisingly too many points for a 500 point game, because it is 765, so there would need to be some cuts. For example, we would probably not be using the drop pod, and we're probably not going to be using this squad of Marines, just because the rest of this, like, say we just cut out this bit, you know, we just pretend it wasn't there. This is going to be about 500 points, because these guys alone are 200 points. These guys are both about 70. Rhinos each 35, and then we can mess with war gear on that guy, on our commander, in order to make it a bit better. But okay, let's say we are taking this. This is not enough for a 1,000 point game, but let's say we were taking this for whatever reason. What's the actual thinking behind it? Why'd I go through picking these units? Well, start off, I actually bought the starter pack for the Space Marines as a whole. So that means I was able to get, it's a set called the Assault on Black Reach. What you do is you pretty much get Tactical Squad, Terminator Squad, Dreadnought that I don't currently have anymore, unfortunately. I was not very experienced and unfortunately did break it. It was unfortunate. And you also get a commander, and that's everything you normally get with the box for the Space Marines. And that is a very playable set, and it completely works. I then went out to the store and purchased these 2 tactical squads on their own. I got the tanks on their own. That was a present, so I didn't have to buy that. I don't know how much that is. But in any case, let's say we were going to go ahead and just start playing it. So what you would do is you'd want to take the models, like for this formation, for example. This is not actually how you'd probably see it on the table. This is with everything I have on the table. What would be on the table is something a little bit more different, and I'm going to go over kind of what that looks like, sort of, because again, obviously if I was playing this, there would need to be some modifications due to that. So providing we're just going to pretend that I have my whole army with me, including the Death Company. So I want to show you guys what the core of my army would actually look like on the table. Okay, so as you can see, I changed things up a bit, so that way you should be able to see. I did put some of my Death Company models down there as kind of representation for the enemies. That's not all of my Death Company. I still have more I have to build. But for now, for the sake of getting content out to you guys, I'd make sure to go ahead and use the Death Company as a placeholder for the types of units you would kind of see on the battlefield. So let's say I'm going to run through 2 versions, one where I get to go first and one where the enemy would go first, kind of how deployment-wise, kind of the thinking. So this is, right now what you're looking at here, including with the heavy group down there. This is what you'd see on the table no matter what. Starting out, I'd only have my 2 tanks. Both of them would be loaded with the Marines. We'd have the commander in the middle, and then the heavy squad of Terminators on one of my flanks. It depends, again, how that enemy deploys. But actually, you know what? Looking at the way I set it up, I think we would actually want to go ahead and move stuff around so that way it makes a bit more sense. So I'm going to go ahead and move stuff over just so you guys can kind of see where my thinking would be here with this. Okay, so you have a commander up there. That's whatever the enemy's HQ choice would be. So I pretty much want to engage my commander directly against him in order to kind of get into a close combat fight and pretty much negate his special abilities, because if I was using this commander doesn't particularly have any type of special power that would be needed for this particular fight. So I would just try and engage their commander so that way bonuses could be removed. Now, what I would do is, because this heavier, whatever their heavy support is, that's going to be really tough to take out. That can really do a lot of damage to infantry. So I would want to use my heavy, well, not heavy, I guess. They're just my Terminators, to go ahead and surround the Dreadnought that'd be over there. So that way you'd kind of tie up that unit and make it a little less usable. And then for those units, say they're whatever kind of infantry squad, you know, they have a fair amount of mobility, so they'd be able to, they'd probably want to charge in and get around to, because this is an objective scoring unit. And in general, when you're trying to take out objective scoring units, you want to make sure that one, you have more than one objective scoring unit. 2, that you'd be able to deal with it effectively. So what these Rhinos are actually going to be able to do is a couple of things. One of the things that we can do with our Rhinos, say the enemy's just moving up, and this is how we're responding, we can actually go ahead and turn our Rhinos to give us cover, and then we can actually deploy our Marines out in the back over here, and then we'd have and this is on our turn obviously, our drop pod go into the back to help secure objectives. Or, in seeing this, because perhaps maybe we want to get a lot of guys to the back for whatever reason, we would instead, I'm just going to move that over here, we would instead want to maybe drive our tanks forward in order to kind of push through and not only ignore enemy units, but also be able to give cover. So now these units wouldn't be able to fire at the action that's going on this side of the board. So we need to think about using our units as cover in and of themselves. You know, they're not just units that, yeah, they can be shot, and these aren't the most strong units. But then, worst case scenario, we could just take our drop pod and plant it in the back. Now the question is, what kind of squads will we want to have inside those tanks, and what's going to be in the drop pod? There's a lot of combinations we can actually use for this. So what I am going to show you is, so let's say we're playing this out, right? Then when would we want to deploy our units inside these tanks? Well, let's say on like the second turn, you know, everything's still locked in combat, but then these infantry guys decide to go back to defend whatever kind of capture point, or maybe even better, they'd probably want to attack this tank. They'd probably attack it, and you know what, just because of the way the nature of the squad is, they would probably break it off and have all, because 10-man squads can be broken into 5-man groups, they'd probably want to take out both tanks. So let's say that for whatever reason, you know, they do it, right? They take them out. So then what squads are going to come out of those tanks when they get taken out or destroyed? So let's say this front tank up here, that front tank up there stays alive, but this one gets taken out, just for visual representation. So inside of that tank right there, we, depending on whatever strategy, we're either going to be having the 10-man squad with the Flamethrower, or the 10-man squad with the Melt-A-Gun. And I'm going to show off what each of those units will in fact look like. And if you're wondering why the Assault Marines, my models themselves, are a bit taller, it's because of the jump packs, and also my Red Marines are an older generation, so they're not as, I guess, nicely polished as some of the newer models in the game. But whenever a tank blows up in the game, you get taken out. Now, I'm waiting for the silver to paint this guy, the rest of this guy's Flamethrower, but this is the Flamethrower Trooper. I got him from the base set. He's pretty good. I like him. So let's say you'd have, this squad would end up popping out. Let's go ahead and move the camera a little bit. Get a little bit of a better visual on that. Tilt things up. Alright, so your guys pop out. And whenever, for my strategy anyways, what we're thinking is, you know, if one group pops out, we should probably have the other guys jump out too. Now, you're allowed to deploy anywhere 3 inches around the vehicle you're disembarking from. So we'd go ahead and take our Melt-A-Gun guy, because, you know, sorry about the camera focus, but we'd have this guy. He has a Melt-A-Gun. That's better for taking out vehicles. He'd be able to be behind, as you can see, zoom out a little bit. He'd be able to get behind whatever their big unit is and take it out, while the other squad pretty much acts like bodies and is able to protect the special weapons unit, because we don't want to lose the guy with a special weapon. Now, we could, at any point in time, also break these 10-man groups into 5-man groups for scoring purposes. But for the sake of demonstration, we're just going to leave them in their 10-man regiments. So let's say we deploy and we dump all of our guys, all right? So the enemy is still, however, surrounding us on this flank. So what we could do, again, with our dropship, because in our third squad, we actually have a rocket launcher. This is, I will admit, one of the 2 ways my whole army in its all-togetherness can actually take out bigger vehicles. So I will probably eventually need to find some way to get better heavy firepower. Again, I'm thinking I'm going to use my Terminators to kind of deal with them. But what we want to do is we'd want to take our heavy trooper, and we would either want to deploy them. I'm going to zoom out a bit. Sorry about that. So we're either going to take our drop pod, and you know, all the wings open, all the doors, and we'd want to have our squad actually jump out over here behind all of our own forces and provide that extra layer of support to the back. Or instead of that, we could also deploy the drop pod all the way back here onto an objective, take our squad, let me just fix these guys up, and drop them off in the back so that way they could get rear shots, again using the support guy to make those more difficult shots that would be tough to do. So this is a very mobile army, I would say, and it allows for a lot of support. Even better, hopefully, is that we get to keep both of our tanks, and maybe our tanks would be able to fire away at the army as well. Now, obviously, there's going to be more units on the table than what I'm using for demonstration purposes, but I do have an idea for what I want to do in every situation. Now, this is, of course, assuming that the enemy deployed first, so then I would try and counter by deploying behind the enemy, or by deploying and moving my tanks up, to protect and isolate their units. But let's say I'm deploying first, what would I want to do then? Well, that is actually going to be continued in part 2 of the basic tactics guide that I'm currently thinking of. So I hope you all enjoyed. I, of course, am Elwirfy, and I'll see you guys next time.